Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is Saturday, day 385, March 31st, 2018, the Saturday morning edition of TowerGate. What fun! Well, the last couple days I've been talking about regarding the IG Inspector General investigation, and now I guess we could call it the Horowitz-Huber investigation because we now have this prosecutor, John Huber, that we've learned about from Sessions, this attorney from, I think, Utah, who's working with Sessions working with Horowitz in tandem on the issues of the day that we discuss every day, almost here on TowerGate. So I've been talking about really the rubber is going to meet the road when we answer one specific question, and that is, are we going to get a report that lays out misconduct or criminal misconduct? So between political misconduct and criminal misconduct, there's a big difference in the legal realm, because if what we're given, as I've said before, is there were things that shouldn't have been done that were bad behavior or misconduct, but do not constitute a crime. If that's what we get, then things could get ugly. They're going to get ugly anyway, but that could get very ugly. So I don't think that that's going to happen. I really don't, and I'll be giving you the reason why here in just a moment. What we have here is, when you look at what we have and what the Inspector General cannot ignore, and what Mr. Huber cannot ignore, is the fact that we have two things. We have the words, and then we have the actions. Now, if we just had these text messages, and they were talking about the insurance policy, talking about fixing the Clinton email investigation, talking about leaking stories to the media to affect the way the public would respond to the email investigation, the investigation to the Clinton Foundation, the investigation into Trump-Russia, collusion, all these things. If all we had was text conversations, then we could say, okay, well, this was a bunch of political stuff that should not have been going on. It was bad behavior. It was a violation of policy. It was misconduct. And if that's all we had, you could make that argument. But in this particular case, we don't just have the words, but we have the corresponding action. That's the important term here, action, because it is the action that was taken along with the words, which make this much more than just bad behavior, misconduct. In fact, we have crime. That's what we have. Because we didn't, again, we had the conversations which tell us about the insurance policy, the cover-up of the email investigation, the cover-up of the Clinton Foundation, leaking to the media, all these things, the operation, the counter-intel operation against Trump, the frame-up, whatever you want to call it. We have all the communications that lay out that this activity was going on. This is not in dispute. But here we have the follow-up action, which is, we know, the FISA warrant that was used to spy on Carter Page, which would then allow them to spy on anyone in the Trump campaign, including Trump. And we have also learned that Brennan was working with the British GCHQ. In fact, the head of the British GCHQ came here and briefed John Brennan on the surveillance they have been conducting on Trump and his team. So there's also that element which we have not even gotten into, or at least with Horowitz and the media and everyone else. They haven't caught up to that yet. But that is a fact that is out there, and because right now everyone's focusing on the DOJ and the FBI, they're not looking at what Brennan and the CIA was doing. Not yet. We'll get there. They'll get there. They'll get caught up. They run behind us here. But we have the corresponding action. They used the dossier, which we can now, I think, be pretty confident was a document that was created within the FBI, the Clinton campaign, the State Department. It was created there, and it was laundered through Steele and back. It was a loop. They created it. They put it into Steele, gave it to Steele. He put his John Hancock on it, put his reputation on it, his credibility on it. He laundered it for them, laundered the intelligence. Then he sent it back to them. It was a loop. That's what happened. There was no Russian story at all. And there's no proof that there was. None of these Russian sources admit to being the Russian sources. None of them. Not yet. In fact, 2 of the 4 who have commented have flat denied it. But let's move on. So, we have the corresponding action. We had the dossier used to get the FISA warrant, and of course we know that they lied to the FISA court judges. Then we have all the communications and all the activities that went on after the investigation was launched, including this setup at Trump Tower, the setup with Papadopoulos, and probably other setups that either fell through and didn't work out, or were put on the shelf, or maybe happened, but we just haven't observed them yet. So, yes, there were corresponding actions to the words. We had the texts, which told us what they were talking about, what they were thinking about, what they were doing, what they were working on, and then we had the corresponding action, which backs up the words they said. That's called a crime. It's not called misconduct. Misconduct would have been if they just had the conversations but took no action. In this case, they took the action. The corresponding action, which backs up the things we've learned from the texts. And keep in mind, we have only gotten just leaks of redacted pieces of the puzzle, these texts. What, a little over 3,000? There's 50,000 texts between Page and Strzok that the Inspector General and Mr. Huber have likely reviewed. There's also probably texts from Comey, from Lynch, from Yates. They've probably looked at a lot of communications of a lot of these people. We haven't heard about those yet, but I'm sure we will in the future. What I'm saying is if you're looking at this as a puzzle, we've only seen about 5 pieces of the puzzle. It's a 1,000-piece puzzle. There's many, many, many other pieces we have not seen that Inspector General Horowitz and Mr. Huber have seen. And these pieces will also be seen by Grassley, Nunes, and Goodlatte, and other members who would like to review them, and eventually by the public. Okay. So, now that I've established what the difference is between misconduct and a criminal act, and we've discussed the fact that Horowitz and Huber have to understand this fact, and they know that the public is aware of these facts because they're in the public domain. They have now a situation where, can they do a report and say, oh, it's all just misconduct? Can they get away with that? That's what a lot of people might be thinking. I don't think they can. I think they have to serve up some scalps. Mr. Horowitz is the cleanup man. He is the custodian. His job is to clean up the mess. And sometimes that requires serving up some folks to save the institution, which in this case is the FBI and the DOJ. So, why can we be assured that in fact Horowitz and Huber are going to have to properly analyze what happened? They're going to have to clearly draw the distinction between misconduct and criminal acts. And I think that they have no choice, because it's pretty evident. Because again, we had the words and we had the actions that corresponded and followed. But they know that they can't just try to run an operation or cover on us where they go with the misconduct and sweep everything else under the rug so we don't get the criminal prosecutions that must happen. But the reason that they really can't do that is because, again, they have Nunes, Grassley, Goodlatte, as well as many members of the Freedom Caucus They have many journalists out there, even though not so much in the mainstream big corporate media, but still enough in the alternative media and other sites like the Daily Caller and Gateway Pundit and True Pundit and Washington Examiner, Washington Times, and New York Post, American Spectator, Drudge. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Various commentators, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, people out there like Joe DeGitima. So we have a lot of different people out there who are clearly defining all of this and following this story every day. Sarah Carter, John Solomon, Chuck Ross. There's just too many people all over it. And there are these members of Congress and the Freedom Caucus, as well as the 3 committee heads, who are pursuing this. They are going to get their hands on all 1.2 million documents, even if they have to subpoena them and threaten to impeach Rosenstein and Sessions and Wray for not producing the documents. And the recent revelations in the last few days suggest to us that, as Nunes and Goodlatte said, if they don't receive the documents they requested unredacted by April 9th, they are going to move for impeachment of the FBI Director Sessions and Rosenstein. And they can do it. I don't think that they would be successful, but just going through the process would raise a lot of stink. What they would need is a majority vote in the House and a 2/3 vote in the Senate. And they can impeach, the Congress can impeach Wray, Rosenstein, or Sessions. A majority vote in the House, a simple 51% majority, but 2/3 in the Senate. They could probably get the votes in the House, but I don't think they'll get 2/3 of the votes in the Senate. But just going through the process would be very, very ugly and not something that Sessions, Rosenstein, and Wray want to experience. Which is why they're going to start producing the unredacted documents, and it's why Horowitz and Huber, even if they wanted to run a cover-up, could not do it, because Grassley, Goodlatte, and Nunes are going to make sure that the public gets the information. And keep in mind, we have only seen about 5% of the puzzle, of the pieces. The other 95% are sitting there at the DOJ and the FBI waiting to be viewed by these members, who will then share it with the general public. So there's really no way that I can see that Horowitz and Mr. Huber could run a cover-up and try to sweep all the crimes under the carpet while only pointing out the political misconduct or what have you, professional misconduct. So this is why I don't believe that that will happen. Even if they wanted to do that, I don't believe that that could happen, because we're too far along. We have too much information. We have the words, and we have the corresponding actions. We also have a cover-up. And you generally have a cover-up when there's something to cover up. And it's obvious that there's been a cover-up going on, and there's been a lot of stonewalling by the FBI and DOJ because they know they're complicit. They are complicit, including many people who still work there, who were part of it. They're not the big names. You don't know their names. I don't know their names. But we do know that it just wasn't McCabe and Comey and Peter's been stroking us and Loose Lisa Page running everything, pulling all the strings. There are dozens and dozens of other people within those departments that were working there, that were doing these things willingly, unwillingly, or just because they were told to do them. And that's why I said many months ago that there will be dozens and dozens of indictments coming down, and many people who will come forward as witnesses and say, oh, I was working under McCabe. I knew some of this stuff was going on. I didn't know what it was all about. I was just doing what I was told to do. I didn't think I was involved in a criminal act, but I just want to tell you so So these are the types of things that will happen. People who were maybe not big names, people that we discuss, or their names aren't in the paper or in the news, but they were there, they were involved, and those people are in liability, criminal liability. And as they see that indictments are beginning to come down, that's when these people, and some of them probably have already come forward, will begin coming out of the woodwork to protect their necks. What you would do, I would do, what our attorneys would tell us to do. Come clean. You really didn't do anything. You're not a target. Become a witness. Cooperate, and they'll take the target off of you. And that's what most attorneys would advise. So this is what you can expect to happen, and this is why I believe that we are not just going to see misconduct, that we are going to see criminal indictments, because, again, the words and the corresponding actions occurred. There was a cover-up occurred, stonewalling occurred, too many people looking at it, too many people looking at it too hard, that there's no way the crimes can be swept under the rug. That's my thoughts on that, regardless of who the IG is or who the attorney is, regardless of whether there's a special prosecutor, special counsel, or whether it's just a U.S. attorney with subpoena power and prosecutorial powers. It doesn't really matter to me. It's semantics. The bottom line is there evidence of crime? Yes. Are there people who are high profile enough, like committee leaders and members of Congress and others, who are doggedly pursuing this and will not allow it to be swept under the rug? Of course. That would include yours truly and all of you. We're not going to let it happen. Now, let's not lose sight of the larger operation that's going on and continues to go on. Remember, we are talking about something that is not something that occurred in the past. We're talking about something that, of course, did occur in the past, but continues to this very moment. It hasn't stopped. The deep state coup hasn't stopped. They're still working on it. That's Uncle Bob, the executioner. That's his job, along with the Hillary donor posse he has assisting him, is to take down the president. So plan A didn't work, plan B, now they're, who knows where they are in the playbook, but they're not stopping, they're not backing off, they're only pushing harder and harder. And we can see this with the things that Mueller is doing and the things that are being leaked out of his investigation. So let's not lose sight of the things that are happening right now and continue to happen. And so right now we are, what I would say, we are on the clock. The clock is ticking. Tick, 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 tick. Every moment up to the 2018 election. And so I believe that the plan that continues is to run the clock out with the Mueller investigation. I think that the plan is for Mueller to keep digging and digging and digging to find anything. And then probably just before the 2018 election, sometime in October, an October surprise, Uncle Bob is going to drop some heavy stuff on some very high-level people, and I'm thinking that may be Trump. I'm thinking an October surprise where they're going to try to drop something on Trump, and that will likely come from him being interviewed under oath. If he agrees to be interviewed under oath, I absolutely guarantee Mueller can come up with anything. He only needs an accusation. After all, it's an October surprise. All he has to do is come out and make the charge, whether he can prove it or not. Just make the charge. It's only got to make it into the media. Mueller charges Trump for false statements, whatever. At which point, you could probably tip the 2018 elections. And then the Democrats would take over the House, the Congress, at least in the House of Representatives, probably not the Senate. They would take over the House where all these proceedings begin. They would then control all the committees. They would shut down the real investigations of Nunes because he would no longer be committee chair. Adam Schiff would be. Bob Goodlatte would no longer be committee chair. None of these guys would be committee chairs. They wouldn't be running this stuff anymore. That would be over. And then immediately they would move to impeach. That is the plan. That is the plan. So it's a game of, we're playing a game against the clock. Nunes, Grassley, and their people are hoping that along with the IG and Mr. Huber, that they begin producing results and indictments before the fall to keep the focus there. On the other side, the goal is for Uncle Bob, the special executioner, to drop something in October, a couple weeks before the vote, that will swing the election over to the Democrats, where they can take control of the House, take control of the investigations, and move for impeachment hearings. And of course, Uncle Bob and his buddies, it is critical for them to make this happen, because if in fact his investigation ends and the real investigation of the real crimes takes over, and as we dig deeper and deeper, what we're going to have happen here is that Mueller and his buddies are going to come up as being indicted themselves. You know, Mueller isn't just out there trying to run the game to protect the FBI and the DOJ, or just to go after Trump for the hell of it because he enjoys it. It's to cover his butt along with other people because he's involved in many things that would be uncovered in a real investigation. So that is the paradigm. It's two trains speeding down the tracks, parallel tracks. Both of them have a destination. Who will get there first? And how's it all going to go down? You see, things are very sticky, very, very sticky, and about to get very hot. It's going to be hot and sticky, just like rock candy. Sick Hillary, the Rotten Reverend, stated while she was at Rutgers University that she's getting criticism because she's a woman. And this came in response to a question by this journalist she was talking to, so-called journalist, who was asking her about the fact that people are telling her to shut up. And so that was her response. First of all, she falsely stated, she said, well, that's coming mostly from the media. No, it's coming from a lot of Democrats in Congress and Democrats across the country in leadership positions in the party. They're the ones telling you to shut up. But that's not what Hillary said. She said, it's mostly coming from the media. Lie. Then she went on to say that she had some young people research, and they found out that this never happened to a man before, where she's saying it's never happened to a man that he was told after he loses an election that he has to shut up and go away. This, of course, is bullshit. More Hillary paranoia, delusion, and denial. The real truth, and everybody knows the truth, is that no other political candidate that we can think of in history in my lifetime that ever lost a presidential election went out right after the election and questioned the election, blamed everyone on the planet for being the cause of them losing the election, and just refused to stop talking about it, complaining about it, blaming other people for the result. That's never happened before. Has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman. Because I'm thinking back, did John McCain go out on a year-long, year-and-a-half? Remember, it's been a year and 4 months since the election. She's still going. Can you think of any presidential loser who lost a presidential race, whether it's McCain, Romney, Dole, Kerry, even Al Gore, who lost in one of the closest elections in history, had to go to the Florida court. And the Florida court judge decided, said that Bush won by a hanging chad. He got you, Al. Now, there were many people telling Al Gore, take it to the Supreme Court, fight it to the top. And Al Gore said, no, the Florida judge has ruled. This thing is over. Bush won, I lost. Fuck it, I'm going home. Okay, so this is what happened. McCain didn't go out and cry about it. He accepted the fact he got spanked, and he went back to being a senator. Forgot about it. Same with Romney. He put his dog on the top of the roof, killing the dog, of course, hopped in a station wagon and went fishing. Now these people all get back into politics and get back into doing what they're doing. Al Gore got back into environmental issues, all sorts of things. But they don't go out. None of them went out after the election was over and day after day after day continued to talk about the election, complain about the election, blame everyone for why they lost the election. No one else has ever done that. That's considered classless. It's considered amateur. It's sophomoric. It's just behavior we've never seen before. And that's the reason that people are telling Hillary to shut up. If she were just out there talking about the issues, no one would probably mind. They'd be happy. But it's not that. She's not out there talking about issues so much. She's out there talking about this resist movement. Resist. What resist? We just had a freaking election, and the majority of the people, 30 states more than voted for Trump, 20 for Clinton, 322 electoral votes for Trump, 224 for Clinton. It was a solid choice by the American people that we want Trump to be the president. And it's as simple as that. The election's over, and that's what the people decided. Therefore, it's correct. But this is what Hillary doesn't understand. But the best part about all this is that she also told this reporter, she said, I'm not going away. She's not going away. We already knew that, right? And that's good, because every day she's out there giving the Republicans tons and tons of soundbite material, which they'll use in ads against Democrats all over the country, especially in those blue states that are turning purple, those red states that just became red states. But she'll just keep smacking those lips, and every day crazy shit will come out of her mouth, and it's all being recorded and will be used in the 2018 campaign. Sick Hillary, the rotten reverend, doesn't know when to shut up and is telling us she's not going to shut up. Well done. Thank you, Reverend. Who will be the next person to fall victim to the Trump curse? Well, I'm going to take a wild guess. How about Ann Coulter? I don't like Ann Coulter. Never liked Ann Coulter. I think she's an idiot. I know she went to law school, I think. She's supposed to be pretty smart, but she's a babbling idiot. Never cared much for her. She's here, she's there, she's over here, over here. She loved the Iraq War. She hated the Iraq War. Oh, I remember watching her on TV once. She was in an interview, and she was talking about how much that the Canadians had always supported us. Yes, they were totally behind us in all the wars. The Canadians, I'm going, what is she talking about? I believe that during the Vietnam War, the Canadian government was highly opposed to the Vietnam War, sent no troops to Vietnam with the U.S., criticized U.S. policy, allowed Americans to come into Canada to avoid being drafted. They refused to cooperate with the American government and returning those people back to the States to be prosecuted for going to Canada to, who people have been drafted going to Canada. Not that I have an issue with that, okay? I was opposed to the Vietnam War. But it's the statement that Coulter was making was that Canada had always been behind us in every conflict and they'd always supported us. No, that's not true. It shows she's either an idiot or she's just running her mouth. But the latest comment she made is regarding Trump signing the bill, the omnibus bill, where she stated that, quote, he is a shallow ignoramus who just wants Wall Street to love him. A shallow ignoramus who just wants Wall Street to love him. This is flip-flopping Ann. Ann Coulter, watching her for years. She flip-flops more than anyone I've ever seen. And I've just never cared for her. I just, never did. But anyway, I think she is going to face some serious backlash for a comment like that. It's way, way, way over the top. A lot of people weren't happy with the omnibus bill. We all understand that. I didn't like it. You didn't like it. But as I laid out, what choice did he have? He's got two. Sign it or veto it. That's it. Sign it or veto it. What happens if you veto it? Well, okay, so you veto it. So then at that particular point, the government would have had a shutdown. And it probably would have been blamed on Republicans and Trump. And then they would have had to do a quick resolution to get through another week or two. They would do a 2-week continuing resolution to buy 2 more weeks of time, and then another 2 weeks, and another 2 weeks. And it's to go on and on and on, and it begins to hurt you as a Republican because you have an election coming up, and it looks like you cannot function. But we've also learned that since Trump signed the bill, that he has a lot of discretion over how he spends the money. So it was not a good bill. I will not say it was a good bill. None of us liked the bill. But he had two choices, sign it or veto it. He signed the bill, he gets the money for the military, and he can use a lot of that money to direct money to things he does support and not direct money to things he doesn't support. He has that authority within the framework of how he can manipulate the funds because of the fact that it's an omnibus bill and not a budget. And we've learned that in recent days. So it seemed really, really, really bad the day he did it. The day after, we started feeling a little bit better about it. Now, it's bad because of the size of the bill and the spending. But on the other hand, Trump will have a lot of control over where those funds go. Yeah, the Democrats will fight it. Screw them. Who cares? Trump loves fights. So do I. I square off with these people and defeat them. And that's what Trump will do. and he will direct that money where he wants it to go. Wow, 4 pages of notes. I'm not even off the first page. That is how much is out there. I might have to do 2 videos. Who knows? Well, let's go here next. Well, just as I told you would happen and will continue to happen, in fact, this will increase in frequency after the IG report comes out and when the first indictments come down. What am I talking about? People turning on each other. When there's a criminal investigation and once the indictments come down, you always have a flurry of people who come out of the woodwork and have to get on one side or the other. And you begin having people turn on each other because, to protect their interests, their attorneys are advising them to take a particular position which may come into conflict with another person's position. So we're now seeing that situation set up as we see the first stage of what will be the IG's report that's coming out. And that first stage, we know, as we learned a couple of days ago, that first stage, the first report, is going to focus on the email investigation, the FBI's handling of the email investigation, and a specific focus on Andrew McCabe. And that's going to be the first IG report. It's going to really focus a lot there. Okay, so we have this thing now setting up between McCabe and Comey. They're going to be forced to turn on each other because they're in direct conflict. And their attorneys are both going to advise them in their best interest to where we are now. So let's take a look at that. And this, of course, is the beginning of the unraveling. When the indictments come down and people start turning on each other, that's when things unravel. So that's what we can expect to happen. But we have McCabe's lawyer is disputing the allegations that the former FBI director McCabe misled his boss, James Comey, about leaks to the media. So McCabe's attorney is saying, hey, my client, Andrew McCabe, did not mislead Comey. And McCabe's lawyer is saying that his client, Andrew McCabe, has emails from October of 2016 that show he and Comey were in communication regarding instructions or interactions regarding interactions with the Wall Street Journal reporter who was working on a story about the Clinton email investigation, and the emails show that McCabe advised Comey that he was working with his colleagues at the FBI. Working with colleagues. Remember that. Working with colleagues at the FBI. So here we have McCabe's lawyer saying, well, you know, my client has some emails, some text from October 2016 that show that he was talking to Comey about releasing the story to the Wall Street Journal, making corrections, making edits, working with this reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Comey knew all about it. That's what McCabe's lawyer is saying. But, and of course that story would later be published in the Wall Street Journal. Okay, but we have the FBI Office of Professional Responsibility, the OPR, and they state in their report that McCabe lied 4 times. That he lied to Comey, he lied to the Office of Professional Responsibility, and he lied to the Office of the Inspector General, Horowitz, the custodian, 2 times about this stuff. Now, we also know from the text that McCabe instructed Lisa Page to speak to Devlin Barrett at the Wall Street Journal, and that they had advised Barrett to portray McCabe's role in the investigation in a positive light. So we have proof that McCabe told Lisa Page to contact Devlin Barrett at the Wall Street Journal and talk about this investigation and paint McCabe in a positive light. And this apparently is according to the FBI OPR division. The report, not only in the report, not only did they say that McCabe did not tell Comey about the leaks, but directly denied even authorizing the leaks himself. So, you know, here we have a problem. And how do we know all of this? It's because of those colleagues that we mentioned earlier. Remember, working with colleagues at the FBI. It's these colleagues and others that are giving this type of dispute between Comey and McCabe. Uh-oh, gotta go. Maybe there'll be a part 2. Check and see.